Today's tip is about some of the things you need to think about when it comes to the time where your loved one might need to move into a community. Today we have my friend Lisa Keith from Sunway Senior Living's Concierge to give you some tips.
Yes, it doesn't have to be scary. It can be an exciting thing.
Yeah, so especially if you prepare.
If you prepare, definitely. That's the main word there, prepare. So we're going to talk about different things to consider when you're start looking and touring senior living communities. One of the first things, it might seem like common sense, but getting a look at the rooms and the different types of rooms they have to offer. A lot of senior living communities, they have studio apartments, 1 bedroom, some have 2 bedrooms.
Some have 300 units, some have 12.
Yeah. What size do you want? Do you want to be in a large community and be around a lot of people? Do you like something a little bit smaller, quieter? Another thing is when you're there walking around the communities, how do you see the residents and the staff interacting with each other, interacting with you and your family as you're coming through? I feel like that's something really important to
I love when I tour a community and the residents go, "Hey, we love it here, and they have the best sausage," or whatever.
Exactly. Yes, that gives you a good idea. Number 2, this is a big one. I feel like a lot of families don't even realize this, but different assisted living communities hold different types of licensing.
Right.
So in the state of Florida, assisted living is regulated through AHCA, which is Agency for Healthcare Administration. And assisted living communities are required to hold a standard license.
Thank you, God.
So that helps with ADLs. There's usually a nurse on site, but it's limited, not all the time. The next type of licensing is an LNS.
Okay.
And that's limited nursing service. And that is when there's a nurse on staff 24/7. So they're able to kind of take care of a little bit higher
need.
A higher need, sure. And then the third type of licensing is an ECC license. And that is the highest type of license that you can have in assisted living. Extended congregate care license. So that's the highest license that you can have, and they can help with a little bit more higher need folks, maybe that have a ostomy bag or.
Well, the good thing with that is you can move into a community and start out at one level, but then stay in that same community and still have higher levels of care.
Exactly.
And I don't think people realize that because I would like to maybe move my mom to one place.
Right. So if you know that something could be possible in the future because of an illness or a disease or something that's going on, that's important to take into consideration when you're looking for a community, because you don't want to move in somewhere and get settled and a year down the line have to move again. So number 3, this is probably the most important one in my eyes, the food in a community. So you are going to be living here. This is your new home. You want to make sure that the food that they're serving is something that you're going to be able to enjoy.
Right.
So I suggest to families a lot is, when they're coming down to making that final decision, schedule a tour where you can go in and have a meal. Have a meal, sit in the dining room, get a real feel for what.
Well, it's funny. When my friend Mama Rose, they were looking for her to move into a community, but nobody wanted to say that to her. She had 9 children. And so they called me up, so I called her up and I said, "Mama, my friend's looking for a community for her mom. Could you go with me and check out the food and the entertainment and everything?" And she was like, "Yes." And she ended up moving in there 2 weeks later.
But food is a big one. I think that's very important. Next is staff training and caregiver to staff ratio. So not all communities are created equally. And that's something also to take into consideration, especially if you have a higher need and there's a small staff to resident ratio. It might be a long time before somebody's coming around to help you, and you might be in a situation where you need something
and especially when you're dealing with a memory community.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I like memory communities that are just one community, because years ago there was a story and people would be like, "Okay, we have a memory community, it's now on the 3rd floor, and we lock everybody up." But that's not what we want. So we want to do our homework. ahead of time, because then it's not scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big one also for training, especially
huge.
in memory care communities, ongoing training. So the staff is really able to, respond well to
And when you go in
the
there, see if the
residents.
staff is smiling.
Yeah,
Because if the staff is not smiling, there's a pretty good chance your loved one's not going to be smiling.
that's right. That is absolutely right.
Yeah.
So the last one is activities.
Yes.
Know what kind of activities are going on in the community. Most communities have a monthly calendar that they can share with
Yep.
you. Do they go on outings? How often do they go on outings? Do they take your loved one to the grocery store? Do they do fun field trips every once in a while
Right.
to baseball games? Or, what type of spiritual services do they offer if that's something that's important to your loved
Yeah.
one? So I think that's really important because you want to keep your loved one engaged and happy. I always say, especially in memory care, the activities director is the most important job,
Yeah.
the most, because that's the person that keeps these folks happy and
Yeah.
engaged,
Yeah.
and
healthy.
and healthy.
And
Yes.
healthy. I want to say one thing. I think a lot of people watch this and they go, I could never afford to go to one of those places. And I'm not saying it's not expensive, and I'm not saying there's lots of things, but I want people to think of, if mom is living in a home by herself, and she's still paying property taxes, and
Yep.
she's still paying for the guy to come in to mow the lawn,
Yes.
and she's still paying for this, and it's
It all
pretty
adds up.
close
It's all-
when you
yes.
end up in the end. So I don't want people to be shy about that because they think they can't afford something. And there's many ways we can work
And there's
around
other
things,
payer
too.
sources that are always
Yeah.
good to look into,
Yeah.
and Medicaid options. So there's lots of different options. And then I just want to leave you guys with a few tips when you are ready to tour communities. I would suggest the first one: show up early for your tour.
Yeah.
Go 10 or 15 minutes early and sit back and just really actively observe what's going on before, somebody comes in and starts showing you all the good stuff, all the pretty stuff. Sit back and see how people are interacting with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. So this is what you do for a living now. So years ago, a very large agency contacted me that does placement, but they don't do it on an individual, like one-on-one basis like you guys do. There was just a lot of telemarketing stuff and a lot of people calling them up, which makes it too confusing. So I feel very comfortable when I go with local people in my local area that know the communities in my area, that live in my area. What I love about what you guys do is you hold their hand.
Yeah.
You hold their hand.
Lots of hand holding.
Yeah.
Yep. Another tip I would say is when you go into communities, talk to some of the residents or the family members that you meet. They will happily tell
share
you what
the
they
good,
think
the bad,
about
and
the
the ugly.
community.
Yeah.
They do. They don't hold back. So that's a real good indication.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is ask to see the most recent survey through ACA. Every community has it. It's available for you to see. Like I said earlier, ACA goes in, the Agency for Healthcare Administration. They go in and they
Survey
make
everything,
sure
make
that
sure everything's
everything
good.
is running the way it's supposed to be.
And
So,
don't feel uncomfortable asking for that.
yeah, that's
People,
important.
if the community is good, they're going to be proud to give you that survey.
Exactly. And the last thing is this is also overwhelming to you, because this is a very overwhelming thing. Call somebody like a senior living concierge. We're a free service for families.
Yeah.
We help them every step of the way. We really take a look at the big picture and narrow down those choices so it's not overwhelming, and it makes it a much easier process when looking for a new home.
And I have to say, do it ahead of time. Don't wait until there's a crisis.
Yeah.
You know, I like to see when a caregiver finally decides that it's time for mom to go into a community or whatever. And it's very stressful, many times more stressful for the caregiver than it is for the loved one. And then 2 weeks later they go, oh my goodness, I get
wish
to
I
be
would've
the
done this
daughter
sooner."
again. I get to be the daughter,
Yeah.
not the caregiver.
And so many people, they wish they had done it sooner. But just knowing what your options are,
Yeah.
right?
Just being prepared.
So if there is a situation that you're caught in, it's not as overwhelming. It takes
Yeah.
a little bit of that pressure off because you know what's available. So
Thank you so much, my friend.
thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always.
Thank you.
Tune in next week for another tip from our friends at Arden Courts, where all they do is memory care. And have a delicious day.